Well, who would have thought that we'd be tougher than the Vikings? They called off the game today, but we are still here in worship, and that is a blessing that we have. I'm going to read today from the Gospel of Matthew. We heard last week about John the Baptist, and we're going to hear once again John the Baptist here during this Advent time. This time, though, things have progressed a little bit in the story. When John heard in prison what Christ was doing, he sent his disciples to ask him, "Are you the one who was to come, or should we expect someone else?" Jesus replied, "Go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is preached to the poor. And blessed is the one who does not fall away on account of me." Actually, this probably isn't the best translation. It's really, blessed is the one who isn't scandalized by me, who isn't offended by me. And as John's disciples were leaving, Jesus began to speak to the crowd about John. "What did you go out into the desert to see? A reed swayed by the wind? If not, what did you go out to see? A man dressed in fine clothes? No, those who wear fine clothes are in kings' palaces. Then what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'I will send my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you.' I tell you the truth, among those born of women, there has been not risen one greater than John the Baptist, yet he who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." Jesus knows who John is. He is the one who prepares the way for the Messiah. But John has his doubts about Jesus. Remember, we heard him say last week in Matthew 3, "You brood of vipers, who warned you to flee from the wrath to come? One mightier than I is coming, whose sandals I am not worthy to untie. He's going to clean things up around here. His winnowing fork is in his hand. He's going to gather the good wheat into the barn, but the chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire." And like a good revival preacher, the people come piling down this center aisle to be baptized by John in the Jordan River. He even baptizes Jesus. And he announces that Jesus is the one who will save the world from its sins. But now, many months later, John is in prison, and Jesus hasn't been burning up the bad guys. And John begins to wonder, is Jesus really the one? Is he the one all the prophets and even he himself had been talking about? Or should they expect someone else? It's a really simple question. Are you the Messiah or not? But instead of an easy answer, Jesus tells the questioners to report back to John what they've heard and seen. The deaf are hearing, the blind are seeing, the sick are cured, the dead are raised to life, and the poor have good news preached to them. In other words, the very things that the prophets such as Isaiah and others have said that God would do are coming true in Jesus. He is the one. But then Jesus makes that curious statement. He says, "Blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me. Happy are those who are not scandalized by me." And we wonder, who would be offended by Jesus healing the sick or curing the blind? Who would be offended that Jesus made a lame person to walk, raised the dead, preached good news to the poor? Who could be offended by Jesus? Well, lots of folks. And you don't have to go back 2,000 years to find them either. This Christmas, anti-God organizations are spending more than ever to turn people away from Jesus. This year, if you travel through the Lincoln Tunnel connecting New Jersey and New York, You will see outside a big billboard as you approach that has a traditional nativity scene on it. Wise men coming, the manger, etc. And then the title, you know it's a myth. This season celebrate reason. It was put up by the American Atheist Organization, and their goal, says their president, David Silverman, is to reach people who might go to church, but who are just going through the motions. We're going after that market share, he says. A blind healing, dead raising, miracle working Jesus offends them. They want to eliminate his celebration. And they're starting with those who come to church, but may be just going through the motions. Now, a little closer to home, the Freedom from Religion Foundation has put up 150 billboards in Madison and a dozen other cities to discourage people of faith. Catechism failed, reason one, says Scott. I like biking, baking, and sleeping in on Sundays, says Katie, wearing her Godless Goddess t-shirt. OMG, there is no God, says Julia the comedian. And then there's my favorite party pooper. Yes, Virginia, there is no God. Freedom from Religion wants to eliminate all forms of faith, but nothing offends them quite as much as the attention that we give to Jesus at Christmas. But for pure, in-your-face, anti-God stuff, you can't beat the American Humanist Association, who put out on their website the declaration that on November 9th, quote, they started a national media ad campaign, the largest and most extensive ever by a godless organization, they proudly proclaim. And the heart of their campaign is to show a cranky old guy reading the words of Jesus or some other Bible quote, taken out of context, of course, and then following that with some nice young woman who says how atheist ideas are so much better than these barbaric biblical words. Obviously, she's offended by Jesus. Now, I can understand not believing in God. No, actually, I can't. God has been such a part of my life that I can't imagine living without God. I can't imagine giving up Jesus and Christmas and Easter and eternal life. But even if I could give all that up and become an atheist, I can't imagine spending thousands of dollars to put down a Jesus that I didn't believe in. And yet that's what Todd Stifel, a retired pharmaceutical executive, did in underwriting that anti-Jesus ad campaign. He alone donated $150,000 to run those ads. I just don't understand. Why does Jesus offend him so much that he would blow $150,000?